Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Petraka, and this is your tip of the month. So, for today's conversation, we're focusing on long-term care planning. As a financial planner, this is one of the more frustrating topics. And the reason for that is it's an unpredictable reality and one of those situations that we are not going to know going into it if we're picking the right path. Considering we can't pick the right path on top of these are big decisions we're making, it's not always a fun conversation to have. So typically what I like to do is either in your late 50s or early 60s, we analyze whether long-term care insurance makes the most sense for you. So if you're sitting there and you're now in your late 60s or early 70s and for whatever reason didn't purchase long-term care insurance, your next move is to really speak to an elder care planning attorney. We can't ignore the risk of having a period of time where maybe you're in an assisted living facility costing 100, 200,000 a year. We do have to address it. Now, there are certain tools and strategies you could possibly implement. And the first thing you need to do is educate yourself on your options. So on with me today is Eric Goldberg, an elder care planning attorney. So I brought him on because I think it makes sense to go right to the source to get a little bit better understanding of what that world is and some kind of one-on-one things that we can think about as we prepare for this situation. So Eric, thank you so much for joining me today. If you want, just start with really what elder care planning does and maybe some of the risk it helps alleviate.
Okay. Thanks for having me, Michael. So, elder care is a subset of estate planning, and a lot of people don't realize that. I go through a whole meeting with people and tell them what I think they need. For instance, their estate planning documents, their wills, powers of attorney, healthcare directives. And I guess I didn't do such a good job explaining it because then they ask me, well, who do I go to get those documents? No, you come to people like us to do that. So we do the basic estate planning. We do estate planning for younger people as well as older people. But an elder law attorney specializes in really trying to prevent people from becoming impoverished or at least spending a lot of money on a long-term care need. And what we've recognized over the years, I've been doing this now for 15 years. What I realize now is and I think it's getting the percentage is getting larger and larger. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 to 70% of people over the age of 65 will have some sort of long-term care need. So I spend most of my day educating people in what can be done from a planning perspective. And we very often, so as I said before, we use estate planning tools like wills, powers of attorney, healthcare directives, but we also use irrevocable trusts in order to protect assets. One thing I just want to mention is that when we conduct long-term care planning, we're always looking at the end game. So what is the possibility, number one, of someone needing long-term care? Well, as you mentioned, Michael, we really don't know, but there is always a possibility. And if they do need long-term care, especially in New Jersey, what is the possibility that Medicaid, a government benefit, can pay for that, where in the same place they would receive fine care at a private facility, but have the government pay for it? That's the key there.
Interesting. You know, there's always when do you do the research? When is a good time to kind of sit down with you? Is it in your 50s, 60s, 70s? When do you think it makes the most sense?
So for healthy people, basic run-of-the-mill healthy individual or married couple, I think early 70s is probably a good number to start talking about this. As you said before, these are usually people who missed the window to qualify for long-term care insurance, or they don't want to pay. They realize they don't want to pay the yearly premium. I leave that to you to educate them, because there are certain products that don't have the risk of having an increase in premium. I'm a big fan of insurance in general. It's mainly for catastrophes, but definitely if people who do not have long-term care insurance, people who have a diagnosis, doesn't matter what age, they can be in their 50s, unfortunately, with a diagnosis of MS, some sort of a dementia, a stroke, a cancer of some sort. those individuals always should be speaking with an elder law attorney. Somebody who has tried to qualify for long-term care insurance and was turned down, or their premiums are so exorbitant because of their health care needs.
The word that always sticks out to me, and I use it all the time, is catastrophic. I
Mhm.
use a very simple test when it comes to whether you should get some insurance or not. Play out the risk. If that's catastrophic, you kind of have to go down that path, or at least do some sort of planning to address those things. So I agree with you 100%. You know, I'm sure you get a few surprises. What are kind of the one or two things you see people try and do to maybe a little bit of your do-it-yourselfers that you want to kind of stay away from?
Right. So as I said before, in order to qualify for Medicaid, one must be impoverished, and so we create a plan to appear impoverished so that somebody has use of their assets and can potentially, if they want, take advantage of Medicaid. And people understand that, and they understand there's also a 5-year look back, which we won't get into here. But so what they do sometimes is based on what maybe a neighbor's done, or a professional in another area of expertise, they'll do something like transfer a very large asset to another family member. It's very often the home. The home obviously is very often an individual or a family's largest asset. So they may transfer that to another family member. That's a very, number one, very dangerous thing to do, because you're transferring risk whenever you transfer any assets. But number two, especially with a house, you're also squandering the ability for your heirs to receive certain tax benefits when they would normally receive it upon your passing. These are the kind of things that we counsel people on. Other mistakes people make is not executing a durable power of attorney. For instance, people think, and I've been guilty of this in the past, of feeling immortal, and younger. There's a statistic or a phenomenon that people always consider themselves to be 15 years younger than they really are, just in their mind.
Yeah.
And so they feel like that it's not going to happen to me. Right before I got on, I was thinking to myself about planning and why so many people don't do planning. By the way, we do more crisis planning than we do long-term planning, unfortunately. And people spend more time deciding on what automobile to buy or clothes to buy than they do planning their future. This kind of type of planning doesn't take all that long. You just have to go and meet with a professional that you trust and execute a plan.
So let's say we find ourselves married couple and everything you said makes a lot of sense in our 70s. We're not 100% sure if this makes a lot of sense to us, or whether we should be doing something or not. If we wanted to sit down with you, like, what's the process?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, because you put it the right way. We don't know if it's appropriate for the family, and they don't know if we are the appropriate professional for them. So I decided a long time ago, I don't charge for these sessions. So I always offer an hour complimentary consultation, which is just education, where people can tell me the facts of their story, and I can tell them what we can do for them, or really what an elder law attorney can do. Or sometimes I'll tell them, well, you don't really need my type of expertise, and I can maybe recommend somebody who is better at what they need. But for the most part, people do need education in this area. It's as in other areas of the law, it's very complex, and I like to describe it as a Rubik's cube. So if you make one move in order to accomplish something, you very often have now made another move unintentionally. And without the guidance of somebody who's done this multiple times, you won't know the negative ramifications of doing your do-it-yourself plan until it's too late. So it's better to talk these things through and know what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah, it's a very good point. When you don't act on something, you are really making a decision. And so, similar to what you just said, as a financial planner, I just want to educate people stuff on their options, understand your risk, and if you don't want to pursue it, you've done all your homework. So, Eric, thank you so much for spending a few minutes with me today. As always, if anyone has any questions, you're more than welcome to give me a call or shoot me an email. Have a good one.